When I was 17, I came home to an empty house and a note on the kitchen table that simply said, "You'll figure it out." No explanation, no forwarding address, just 7 words that tore a hole through the center of my life. A week later, I learned they'd packed up everything and moved 3 states away. My parents, and my brother, my only family, gone. I found out from the landlord, who handed me an eviction notice because they'd cancelled the lease early. 12 years passed before I heard from them again. By then, I'd built a new life from the ground up, on grit, hunger, and a rage that never let me rest. And just when I'd finally made it without them, they reached out, as if nothing had happened. As if I hadn't spent my last year of high school eating peanut butter with a spoon and sleeping in a rented storage unit. When I was 13, I made a birthday cake for my mom all by myself. She called it lumpy, and tossed it out. At 15, I stayed up for nights tutoring my brother Mason through his finals, only to be called a know-it-all, and have his door slammed in my face. At 16, I handed my entire paycheck to my dad so he could cover bills. The same man who, months later, would call me useless when I asked for help with college applications. And yet, despite it all, I never saw it coming. The sheer cruelty of their exit stunned me. 1 minute, I was a member of a broken but intact family. The next, I was just a name on an empty lease. I stayed at a friend's place for 3 nights, then I ran out of favors. My savings, $4.12.75 at the time, went to a storage unit, where I slept wedged between Rubbermaid bins and the smell of cardboard. I showered at the YMCA. Ate crackers and peanut butter for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I hunted for jobs on the free computers at the library and lied to teachers about why I was always tired. Eventually, a diner hired me for the overnight shift. The manager, Patty, was gruff but fair. Paid me cash under the table while I figured out my paperwork. Once, when I nearly passed out from exhaustion, she let me nap in the break room for 20 minutes. That small kindness? I still think about it. I clawed my way up, one graveyard shift at a time. I watched free YouTube videos on finance, bought a prepaid phone, kept receipts in a manila envelope like they were treasure maps. I built a scaffold for a life no one had planned for me, not even myself. The turning point came when a regular at the diner, a man named Mr. Callahan, offered me a temp job cleaning out records at his office. It paid 3 times what I made at the diner. I said yes before he could finish the sentence. That temp job led to another. And another. By 21, I was freelancing full-time. At 24, I launched a tiny consulting business with a folding table and a borrowed laptop. By 26, I had an office and 4 contractors under me. At 28, my bank app showed 7 digits for the first time. No credit cards. No debt. A paid-off apartment, health insurance I didn't have to panic over, and, most shockingly of all, a therapist named Melissa who listened to me without blinking when I said, "They left me like trash, and I still don't know why." Through all of it, I never heard a word from them. Until last month. The email came in at 2:11 a.m., subject line, "You're still our daughter." I stared at it like it might bite. There was no apology. Just a paragraph from my mother about how she heard my side and wanted to talk. Then another email followed, this one from Mason. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" What happened next shocked everyone, and changed our family forever. I didn't reply to either email. Not right away. I just sat with them. Stared at the screens like they might morph into something real. Melissa, my therapist, told me to wait a week before I made any decisions. "Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up," she said. So I did. I went to the gym. Buried myself in work. Ate Thai food with friends like nothing had shifted in my universe. But those emails haunted me. My mom's message read like it had been drafted by a PR team. Cold. Clinical. Like she was reaching out to an ex-colleague who she once accidentally copied on the wrong email thread. Mason's felt different. Shorter. More human. He said he was sorry. Said he didn't know what they were planning. Said he'd been just 15 when they left and that he didn't have a choice. He also said the podcast changed things. Yeah. That podcast. A random guest spot I did on a show about surviving family estrangement. I'd spoken frankly, too frankly, maybe, about being left behind, about scraping my way out of homelessness, about what it means to build a life with no one in your corner. It hit over 1 million listens in 4 days. That's when the messages started coming, not just from my family, but from strangers. Dozens of them. People who'd lived through their own abandonment, their own betrayals, their own parents who left without saying goodbye. It was overwhelming. Empowering. Terrifying. But still. Mason's message stuck with me. 10 days after I first opened it, I sent back a single line. It's been 12 years. What changed? He replied within an hour. He told me he'd been following my success quietly over the years. That seeing my face in the podcast promo shook something loose. That he was proud of me. That he hadn't had the courage to reach out sooner. And then, almost like he couldn't help himself, he added, "Our parents are struggling. Their business failed. Medical bills are bad. Sarah, his wife, is pregnant again. We don't know how we're going to manage." There it was. The reason. The truth hiding in plain sight like a snake in tall grass. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They needed help. I didn't respond. A few days later, another email from Mom landed in my inbox, this time with attachments. Old photos. Me as a baby, all cheeks and curls. The 3 of us at a beach I barely remembered. A snowman that Mason and I built in what must have been 2nd grade. She ended the email with, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." Melissa and I read it together during my next session. "You're in control," she reminded me. "You don't owe them anything. But if closure helps you move forward, it's worth considering, whether that means reconciliation or a final goodbye." I didn't know what I wanted yet. But I did know this. I wasn't ready to meet them. Not all of them. Not yet. So I chose the easier option, Mason. We agreed to meet halfway, literally. A neutral coffee shop in downtown Minneapolis, 5 hours from each of our cities. I flew in early, booked a hotel, and nearly backed out 3 separate times. But at 1:55 p.m., I walked through the doors, heart pounding so loud I thought people might hear it. He was already there. Mason. He looked older. Rounder in the face. Thinner in the hairline. But his eyes were exactly the same. I didn't hug him. We just sat. 2 strangers who once shared a childhood. The first 20 minutes were awkward. Weather. Flights. Work. Then he dropped the small talk and said, "I'm sorry, Ellie. I didn't know they were planning to leave you." I swear. I studied his face. He looked sincere, but I'd been fooled before. So I asked the question that had burned in my throat for over a decade. Why me? Why was I the one left behind? Mason looked down into his coffee cup like it might give him an answer. Then he said, "They always thought you were the strong one. The independent one. The one who'd be okay on your own. They convinced themselves you didn't need them like I did." I let that sink in. Then I told him everything. About sleeping in a storage unit. About eating peanut butter for weeks. About showering at the YMCA. About collapsing during a night shift. His face crumpled. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They told me you had a plan. That you chose to stay behind. That you were going to live with a friend's family." I stared at him, numb. All lies. By the time we left that coffee shop, I wasn't sure what I felt. Mason had cried. Apologized. Showed me photos of his wife, his daughter. Told me about his accounting job. He never once asked for money, which shocked me. And when we stood to leave, he hugged me. I let him. But I didn't hug back. Back at the hotel, I called Melissa and told her everything. Her voice was quiet but firm. "He seems sorry," she said, "but he's still framing himself as a child. 15 isn't 5. He was old enough to question what was happening. Old enough to reach out. She was right. Somewhere between child and adult, he had made a choice, not to lie, but not to speak either. That night, my phone rang. I hadn't given my number to my mother, so Mason must have. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was raw. Older. Tired. She cried the moment I said hello. "I'm so proud of you," she said, like the words might cover a decade of silence. "I always knew you'd make it. You were always special." I didn't say anything. Just let her talk. Then, when she paused, I asked her the same question I'd asked Mason. "Why me?" There was a long silence. Then she said it. "We were in debt, Ellie. Couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. You were smart. We figured you'd go to social services. Get placed with a family who could do more for you." I hung up. Blocked her number. Threw the hotel room pillow across the bed and screamed into the mattress. I didn't cry. Not yet. Because somewhere inside me, I already knew this would be her answer. But later that night, alone in the darkness of the hotel room, I remembered something. When I was 16, it was March, still cold enough in Chicago that the wind cut through you like razors. My dad had promised to pick me up after my late shift at the grocery store. I didn't have a car yet. We didn't live near a bus stop. And I'd already paid for my brother's SAT tutor with my last paycheck. I waited on the porch outside the store for 2 hours. I remember watching the snow fall into the gutter, melting on the edge of the asphalt. Every headlight that passed made my heart jump. Every car that wasn't ours made it fall again. He never came. I walked home in the cold, shivering the whole way. When I got back, soaked and half frozen, the front door was locked. Lights off. Everyone asleep. Like I didn't even exist. I stood on the porch, staring at the same kitchen window where I'd later find the note. The same window they would leave wide open when they vanished for good. That night I knew something I didn't have the courage to name. They were never really mine. Not the way parents are supposed to be. The next morning, I got my dad's first message in 12 years. No apology. Just a rundown of hardships. Medical debt. The business closure. Sarah's surgery. And at the end, the punchline. "If you can help out the family, we'd be grateful." No mention of what they did. No. "How are you?" No. "I'm sorry." Just a veiled ask. I forwarded it to Melissa with the subject line. And there it is. She called me within minutes, even though it was Sunday. We talked about boundaries. About enabling versus helping. About the difference between guilt and responsibility. By Monday, I knew what I had to do. I emailed Mason. Told him I was open to a relationship. With him. With Sarah. With the baby. But with clear boundaries. No money. No loans. No help. And absolutely no contact with our parents until they took full responsibility. His reply was fast and revealing. "I'm disappointed, Ellie. Our parents need help. Family supports each other. You're being selfish with your success." All the guilt switches they'd hardwired into me flipped at once. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked a flight to Bali. 2 weeks off-grid. A break. A reset. 3 days later, Mason left a voicemail apologizing for the tone of his email. Said he understood. Said he still wanted a relationship, on my terms. Maybe it was real. Maybe it wasn't. I didn't know. But I knew one thing. I was done letting my trauma write the script for my life. Bali was supposed to be a fresh start, or at least a breath. But by day 3, I realized something troubling. Even paradise can't outpace fear. I hiked, swam, meditated. Woke up to birds instead of sirens. But every time my phone buzzed, my chest clenched. Back in Chicago, I had control. My doorman, my locks, my schedule. Out here? I was just one more vulnerable woman with a past. When I returned, the emails had piled up. 6 from my dad, increasingly desperate. 1 from Mason. "Can we talk?" So we did. Phone call only. He apologized again. Said he'd started therapy too. Told me he understood my limits now. Said all the right things. But then he mentioned something else. Mom and Dad are visiting next weekend. Would you consider seeing them? My stomach dropped. No, Mason. I'm not ready for that. He backed off, but barely. That night, Melissa came to my apartment for an emergency session. I told her everything. I'm not scared because I hate them, I admitted. I'm scared because part of me still wants their love. It felt pathetic to say out loud. But it was true. I cried for an hour. Real, messy sobbing. The kind you don't hide from someone who's sat with you through the worst parts of yourself. The next morning, Mason texted. Mom cried all night. Dad's talking about driving to your city. They just want to talk. Panic punched me in the gut. I blocked his number. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I hid. I told my assistant I was working remotely. Ordered groceries. Didn't leave my apartment. Triple-checked every lock. But the nightmare came knocking anyway. Wednesday morning, the doorman called. There's a couple asking for you. Won't give names. My throat closed. Don't let them up. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Voicemail. It was my dad. Ellie, we drove 8 hours. You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain. Deleted it. Thursday morning, 7:12 a.m., pounding on my door. I froze. My heart beat so loud I couldn't hear anything else. Then, through the peephole, I saw them. My parents. Standing in the hallway like they had a right to be there. Like this was a reunion, not an ambush. Ellie, please. My mom's voice cracked through the door. We just want to talk. We love you. We're sorry, my dad added. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just slid down to the floor, back to the wall, knees to my chest. Shaking. Eventually they left. I called building security, told them, do not let those people in again. The guard asked if I needed police. No. Just keep them out. Later that day, Michael's wife Jenny showed up. She had a toddler on her hip, dark circles under her eyes, and an exhaustion that felt like recognition. She introduced herself softly, placed her daughter, Lila, on the couch, and sat at my kitchen table. I only found out about you 3 years ago, she said. Mason told me you ran away. But your podcast, that changed everything. Then she showed me the truth. Facebook posts. From my parents. Asking for prayers for their troubled daughter. Accusing me of stealing money. Of disappearing without warning. Posts claiming they were searching shelters. Hiring private investigators. All lies. Your podcast exposed them, Jenny whispered. Now they're spiraling. I felt sick. They're telling people you're mentally unstable. That you're the reason the family fell apart. She pulled out more screenshots. Then she said something that stopped me cold. They told Mason not to reach out until they knew you had money. So all those years, it wasn't just silence. It was strategy. The last straw wasn't the threats. Not even the break-in. It was the photo. Lila, playing in her friend's backyard. Unaware. Happy. And being watched. Below it, just 4 words. This isn't over yet. I showed Mason. His face drained of all color. Jenny clutched Lila so tight the girl whimpered. I called Marcus immediately. They've escalated again, I told him. Now it's war. We filed police reports, added to the restraining order case. Jenny and Mason checked into a hotel under different names. I prepped my apartment like a fortress. We were all tired. All terrified. But we were done playing nice. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room, watching the street. At 2:08 a.m., a beat-up Buick parked across from my building. My father's car. He didn't get out. Didn't need to. Message received. The next morning, Marcus confirmed we had enough for court. Security footage, texts, emails, voicemail threats. We were ready. But I wasn't ready to wait anymore. I emailed my parents. One last talk. Tomorrow. Noon. 8th Street Cafe. Just me. No police. No lawyer. Just me on my terms. The next day, I walked in, sat in the back corner. Waited. They arrived on time. My mother looked like someone had deflated her. My father's jaw was tight. They sat across from me in silence. I started first. This isn't a reconciliation, I said. This is a warning. I laid my phone on the table. Scrolled through screenshots. Photos. Legal notices. This is your legacy now. They didn't speak. I have sent this evidence to your church, your siblings, your coworkers. Haven't hit send yet. But I will. My mom started to cry. We just want our daughter back. You had her, I said. You left her. My dad finally spoke. You owe us. We raised you. No, I said, laughing bitterly. You survived me. I raised myself. I stood. If you contact any of us again, me, Mason, Jenny, or Lila, I will bury you legally, socially, and publicly. My mom sobbed. Ellie, please. I turned to leave. Do you hate us that much? She asked. I turned back once, just once. No. I feel nothing for you. And that's your loss. I walked out lighter than I'd felt in years. Back home, Mason called. He was shaken I'd gone alone. But grateful. I wish I'd stood up to them like that years ago, he said. A week passed. No contact. Then a letter arrived through Marcus. From my mother. No excuses. Just an acknowledgement. We hurt you. We failed. We understand if we never see you again. We're getting help. I read it twice. Then filed it away. Not out of forgiveness. But because it mattered. 6 months later, Lila turned 4. The party was at my place. Balloons. Cake. A new dollhouse. Jenny laughed. Mason grilled on the balcony. Lila spun in circles yelling. Aunt Ellie, look at me! I stepped into the kitchen for a breath. Watched the scene. Let myself feel it. 12 years ago, my parents left me with 7 words. You'll figure it out. I had. Not the way they meant. But in a way they'd never understand. I had figured out family. And it had nothing to do with blood.